In my work, I basically have focused very much on what are the leverage points to accelerate this shift that's so urgently needed from domination to partnership. And I've identified a number of leverage points, of course, the primary human relations, as I mentioned, gender, childhood relations, myths and stories, very, very important, because we humans live by stories. And yes, economics. But economics from a very different perspective than the conventional one of capitalist or socialist. Economics from a perspective that really recognizes that both capitalist and socialist theory came out of times that oriented still more than today, at least in the West, to the domination system. And that what we need is a new economics that incorporates the partnership elements of both, but goes beyond them. And goes beyond them in a very specific and fundamental respect. An economic system that, unlike current ones, whether they're socialist or capitalist, give visibility and value to the most essential activities, the life-sustaining activities, be they the work of caring and caregiving in families or the life-sustaining activities of nature. Why? Because without these, we have nothing. And so I have just finished my new book called The Real Wealth of Nations. And the subtitle is Creating a Caring Economics. And of course, just putting caring and economics in the same sentence, that's not your usual conversation about economics, is it? So our first step really is changing the conversation. Because that work of caring and caregiving, whether it's for people or for nature, is the most fundamental human work. And yet, if you look at today's economic indicators of productivity, such as gross domestic product, gross national product, you see something absolutely ludicrous, but understandable considering that it came out of the domination system. These indicators give value, on the plus side, activities that actually harm, that actually take life. Yes, from oil spills, because the work of cleaning them up is terrific for GDP. From putting people in prisons, because after all, the prison industry is terrific for GDP. From making cigarettes, the health costs and the funeral costs are terrific for GDP. Weapons, fantastic for GDP. So that's lunatic, isn't it? But it's just as lunatic is what they don't include as productive work, which is the work of caring and caregiving that is performed in families, primarily still by women, although it's wonderful how many more men are now diapering and feeding and bathing and really mothering in their fathering. I mean, that's one of the most important partnership trends. But of course, whether it's done by women or men, it's not part of the GDP, nor is the life-sustaining processes of nature part of GDP. So naturally, what is not counted is not considered in policies. So the first proposal in my new book is a new map, a more realistic map for what is the domain of economics, starting with the core, the household, then the volunteer community economy that's unpaid, then the market economy, then the illegal economy, then the government economy, which are the only ones, those three that are counted today, and then, of course, the natural economy. If we start with this map, we have a completely different way of seeing what is needed. What kind of practices, what kind of policies are needed? And of course, I also point out in this book that we have inherited this way of, this really very distorted way of looking at economic systems from a time, yes, that oriented much more to the domination system, in which the ranking of one half of humanity over the other, the ranking of men over women, was such a huge piece. So that women were supposed to do this work for free in a male-controlled household, and it was just not visible as important, as productive. And the aim, of course, is to have policies that give visibility and value to this most essential human work, and it's particularly important, well, of course, for humans it's essential, but it's particularly important for the post-industrial economy, where we hear so much about producing high-quality human capital. That's not produced in universities. If you don't start right there, early, and we do know that our early experiences really have such a profound effect, don't they, on, well, whether we're venturesome, creative, whether we can work with others, whether we are nonviolent or violent, etc., etc. And yes, whether we are really able to utilize our full human potentials. So, if only from an economic perspective, and I have learned in my work, all my books show the benefits. They don't just deconstruct, critique. They reconstruct and they show the enormous benefits, personal, social, economic, and yes, environmental, of the shift to the partnership side.